My apologies if I'm spending more time looking over there than looking at you. Okay, welcome to the October 8th quarterly meeting of the State Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission. Thank you all for coming. I'm Mary Alice Evans, the co-chair for the commission. My co-chair, Dawn Chang, is out of state today and sends her apologies. She's unable to be here. We're going to get started with, are there any issues with Zoom that we need to address before we get started? Just, you can wave your actual hand or the virtual hand, whichever you want. I don't see any, do you see? Okay, great. So commissioners, if you would leave your cameras on, thank you so much for that. And we will go ahead with the roll call. And then we will, all right, let's get started. For the designee for co-chair Chang is with us today. Thank you very much. Tiger Mills with the Office of Coastal and Legacy Lands?
Conservation and Coastal Lands.
Right. And is there a representative from Senator Gabbard's office?
Yes, I'm here, Meg.
Oh, thank you, Meg. Okay.
Hi, Mary Alice.
Is there a representative for Senator Illinois? Excused. Representative Lowen.
Hi, here.
Thank you. Is there a representative for Representative Hashem? Excused. Is there a representative for the Hawaii Tourism Authority? Excused. Is there a representative for the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity?
Present. This is Ray, present.
Thank you very much, Ray. Is there a representative for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs? Excused. Representative for the Department of Hawaiian Homelands?
Aloha, Katie Lambert, representing the Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
Thank you so much for coming. Is there a representative for the Department of Transportation?
Hi, everyone. Laura Ka'akua for Hawaii Department of Transportation.
Thank you very much, Laura. Representative for the Department of Health?
Hi, Diana Felton, Department of Health, on behalf of Director Fink.
Thank you. Is there a representative for the Department of Education? Oh, wonderful.
Sorry to leave this.
No, your timing is perfect.
You're foiled by a sandwich shop.
We haven't even called your names yet. Roll call. Yeah. So is there a representative for the City and County of Honolulu? Excused. And is the Director of Planning for the County of Maui here?
Present in the room.
Is there a representative for the Hawaii County? I think I see.
Present.
For Hawaii County.
We've got a little bit of an echo there. Is that something we can fix, or?
I think it's their background.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. If you'll keep your audio muted so that we're not getting that feedback. Director of the Kauai County Department of Planning.
Present.
Is there a representative for the Adjutant General? Excused.
Philippa's here.
Oh.
Philippa, that's you.
Hello, Philippa, representing Haima. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And the representative for the Coastal Zone Management Program.
Hi, Sarah Chang, just filling in for our program manager today.
Thank you. And for Director of DBED.
Monique Sanfis here for DBED. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead. I want to acknowledge staff at this point. We are here on the end. We have Leah Laramee, the State Climate Change Coordinator. We have here, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Summer Cornell. I'm the AmeriCorps for the Climate Commission.
Thank you, Summer. And here we have two new interns. Would you stand up and introduce yourselves? Oh.
Aloha, I'm Daria Monkus, Helimu intern with Climate Commission.
Great.
Aloha, I'm Allison O'Connor. I'm a Vista with OCCL.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. And are there any announcements that we want to have before we get started? Seeing none? Nope, seeing none, we'll go ahead. I'll announce a change to agenda item 4. We are going to, Ben Sullivan will not be available for that, but we may have a discussion on climate adaptation. And I think we have some advocates here who can offer thoughts on that. So the first item on our agenda for action is the, I want to note that our representative from DLNR will have to leave before 2. Is that right, Tiger? Yeah. So we're lucky to have her, so we're going to make sure we have, go quickly to be able to best use her time with us. The minutes have been circulated to the members by email and have been posted. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes as circulated? Go ahead, Leah.
Corrections have been received from DHHL and incorporated into the new minutes.
Okay. Any objections to the minutes as corrected? Seeing none, the minutes are accepted as corrected. And we'll move to our first agenda item. And for that, it is item 3, 5-year sea level rise report and viewer. At our last meeting, we noted that our enabling legislation, chapter 225P-3, requires the commission to provide the legislature with a 5-year update of the sea level rise report that was submitted in 2017, updated in 2022, and will be due to the legislature and the governor in 2027. So to kick us off with how we might be able to achieve that statutory requirement, and then allow for discussion on what that should include to best meet the needs of our state and county agencies and members of the public. We start with Amy Wertz, and she's accompanied by Brad Romine.
Thank you. Thanks to the commission, Leah, everyone online. So Mary Alice and Dawn asked us to be here today to just give an update on where we are. You last heard from us in July at the last commission meeting, just sort of setting the groundwork, a reminder of where we were in 2017, the viewer that resulted from the 2017 report, and then our 2022 update. At that time, Brad sort of gave a quick overview of what we thought might be able to fit into a table of contents. And we wanted to come back today to sort of update you on how that has been honed down and updated a little bit. And then most importantly, to get the commissioner's input on scoping what this report will look like, because we can start from a very baseline scope and go to a very detailed report, and want to know really, this is the commission's report of what the ask is from you all. So next slide, Leah. So this is a table of a draft table of contents for the 2027 update. If you recall, in 2022, one of the recommendations was to do a full update to the report in 2027 rather than the kind of progress update that we did back in 2022. As we took some of the conversation from the last commission meeting, and our rather small group of folks has been looking at this report, There's a desire to see things be more implementation and action focused. So rather than just in the ordering of the report, setting it as the baseline science and the impacts and then ending with recommendations, really looking to weave those recommendations throughout and lead with an action plan for sea level rise adaptation and implementing those items in there. Of course, also followed up then by any updates to the science and what the modeling and the outlook for sea level rise may look like since the 2022 report. Although honestly, there probably won't be any national outlooks and all of that have been updated. So that might be more local science that's Hawaii specific that's done. And looking at updates as well to observed and projected impacts statewide to things like natural resources, also to DOT infrastructure, other infrastructure, homes throughout the state, what the implications of that are for adaptation planning, and of course, the socioeconomic ramifications as well. One of the items in the action plan, or that could go under this impacts, is the potential to look at new and enhanced modeling. That was another recommendation back in 2022. Some of those results would probably be woven throughout the report that we try to keep very implementation focused. And then ending it with there's been some work being done by the Institute for Sustainability and Resilience at UH on public and agency perceptions and needs around sea level rise. So incorporating those surveys that have been done also, which many of you have probably participated in with Ketty Loeb and Colin Moore. Go to the next slide. So mostly what we want to have is a discussion today, right? That's kind of a baseline of the types of things that we could include in the report. And I just have a short series of questions to hopefully spur a little bit of conversation. The first being, what data or information do you need to make informed policy and implementation decisions? And as a reminder of the data that we have available, mostly statewide now, if you can go to the next slide real quick, Leah, is the sea level rise exposure area, which just a quick refresher, right, is comprised of that passive high tide flooding, which for the Big Island and Molokai, all we have is the passive flooding. So there could be a possibility there for some data needs. And then for Kauai, Oahu, and Maui, we also add in the annual high wave flooding and the observed coastal erosion to create our combined SLREXA. So that is the baseline data that we have that has been used to create statewide and individual county policies.
With apologies, every state agency, board, and commission has been Zoom bombed in recent months, and we are working on our skill sets to try to block that. But this one wasn't as bad as some I've seen. So
can we ask for?
Do not include that.
Yeah. Can we ask that KV Shaw identify themselves? Because they're the only other person that we don't know.
Oh, that's from Maui. She's from Maui.
Okay.
Kadian.
Okay. Okay,
Hi,
cool. Just
Kadian.
wanted to make sure that we don't have that again.
Sorry, no, totally not me. I'm at the office of the mayor of Maui County.
Katie, and you don't look like a Zoom bomber.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay, go ahead with the questions.
Okay, so it's a series of 5 questions that I have. So this is the first one. What data or information do you as state agencies, county agencies on the commission need to make informed policy and implementation decisions?
I'll jump.
Yeah,
Nobody
I
else.
figured you'd start.
I guess when going back to 2017, 18, when the report was adopted, right, there was the whole disclaimer not to be used for regulatory purposes, and it was adjusted to be used for regulatory purposes. And there was definitely some trepidation at that time whether or not this data should be used for regulatory purposes. You can fast forward to now. Clearly, Maui and Kauai have taken a step forward to thread them into the regulatory regime. But understanding the trepidation, one of the biggest issues that came up was, particularly for the coastal erosion and highway run-up modeling, that it's a one-dimensional analysis and isn't taking account what's going on underneath the ocean, the wave action in there. Those same critics were very, very supportive of one-dimensional for passive flooding, just using the LiDAR and the the slope terrain to figure that out. But I guess ultimately, one of the questions I have is the update going to include two-dimensional modeling as a part of it?
Would you like for the update to include two-dimensional modeling? Is that a request that you have?
It's not so much a request in that for our regulatory framework that we essentially set up a flood ordinance 2.0 to look at historic flooding as the theme of firm maps, and then take the models for Slerexa to set up a sea level rise flood ordinance. I don't think necessarily we need a two-dimensional model analysis, but in that it can true that out a bit better, it would help, I guess.
Just to clarify, maybe you said this, but when you say two-dimensional model, you mean including depth information with the model?
Correct,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So an example, if you go one more slide forward, maybe, Leah, is, we did not set this up ahead of time, but an example of something that Maui has done, and this is two-dimensional in a slightly different sense than that, is, you can go to the next one, Leah, is the two-dimensional wave run-up for West Maui, which was worked on, I believe, under a federal grant with Maui County for all of West Maui. And this is two-dimensional in that the sort of in and out flooding and a cross shore component as well. And then the viewer on this also has the depth markers, right? So it also pulls out that depth data. So this is an example of something that's been done through PAC IUS in the last few years that updated and enhanced the modeling that's viewable in West Maui we really did not set that. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm reading between the lines that it would be helpful if this body said, yeah, we need that for you. Are you asking us to weigh in and say, yes, please do this for us so that you have some backing to move forward? I'm sorry, I need to be direct.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So probably to set roles here would be helpful is that, so Brad and I are UHC grant, right? And we are partially funded by OCCL for doing this kind of work. Michael has committed some sum of money in addition to our salaries as well, the piece of that we do this, to helping with the report. Right. Because this is the commission's report, it seems that the most appropriate thing is for the commission members to say what would best be incorporated into it. And that's as helpful. A budget request goes forward through DLNR to ask for the money to support this 10-year update, having these be requests from agencies that are actually utilizing the reports out there helps to justify those budget asks for doing an update.
Great. Okay.
Also, right, just personally, aside from there being a legislative mandate, it's good for adaptation planning to have to know what you guys are using for doing your actually implementing these policies and doing your regulatory functions there as we continue to update this work.
Okay, so I'll make a comment based on that. I'm not a scientist, and I'm not even going to pretend to be one, not even a little bit. But what I will say is that in Maui, there are plenty of people who fully recognize that climate change is a real thing and it's happening, right? But then there are others who are constantly pushing back. We just adopted the erosion hazard line as our shoreline, and they're saying that's nonsense. It's never going to happen. So my answer to you, as far as the things that we need, is anything that we can get to tell the story. And it's not about telling the story that we want to hear. We just need as much information as possible. So, and we're never going to quiet the critics. That's never, some people won't listen no matter how much information you throw in front of them. But I think if we're constantly improving on the data we have, then we can show that we're not stuck in this time period that becomes old data or old methodology. So the more that you can, and you guys, I trust you to have the ideas that take us into the next level. So that's my answer to your question, is as much as you can, as quickly as possible.
One of the things I'm hearing there, in addition to the modeling, it sounds like it'd be helpful to continue to strengthen the scientific basis behind there, the observations, what we're seeing, the impacts of sea level rise, present day, and the basis for future predictions there?
Yeah,
Is that part of
definitely.
it?
And I
Okay.
think to the extent possible in the English language, written for people that like can, so
Yeah.
that everyone can understand it.
Relatable.
Because a lot of things that come out of academia are really difficult for people non-academic people to understand. And so the more that we can have stuff that's accessible for our general public, the better. So those would be, so everything you said and in English,
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah.
modern English.
Leah, could you go to the next slide? Just while we're in this discussion?
It's just back to the question.
Amy, can we ask other members of the commission if they have things to add? Okay.
As I'm poised right by the microphone. Diane Fulton, Department of Health. So I want to echo what both folks just said about both communications materials, really important. And I would go further and say in lots of languages if possible. And then
Yeah, thank you.
and then the wave run-up, I think, would be helpful for some, the 2D wave run-up would be helpful for some of the sort of minutia work that we've been doing at DOH around movement of contaminants. The other thing that would be helpful, and I have no idea how feasible this is, it's really not my area of expertise, so I'm just throwing it out there, but an actual, and I don't know if it would be 2D or 3D, but looking at the subsurface and some layers that actually look at the subsurface. I'm thinking around, and groundwater, sort of based on UH Shelley's work on groundwater intrusion and stuff, and being able to start making assessments on cesspools and what are getting flooded, I think could be useful for some of our sort of environmental health work as well.
Great, thank you. Sarah, for CZM, is there data that would be helpful for the ORMP or for MACSAC or for other?
I think I would echo everything that's been said already. I think inundation depths would be really interesting and could actually, having that 2D information might help us make some more kind of like 3D visualizations that could maybe help towards the communication side of things, make it a little bit more real than just a flat map. I definitely agree with the groundwater inundation impacts, especially related to cesspools. And then for the sake of adding a new item, I would say maybe erosion data for Molokai would be interesting, especially the areas that are near the development. I mean, if we have to focus, on a certain aspect, but yeah.
Laura Casio, representing the County of Hawaii, thoughts on data that would be useful for Hawaii County?
I think I would reiterate that two-dimensional and any, what was shared earlier. If any data at this point that shows context and occurrence is very valuable, especially for our administration.
Thank you. Katie Lambert, is there data that DHHL needs that might be helpful as you look at your shoreline homestead communities and their futures?
I would agree with what I've heard so far as far as updated 2D, the effect, I guess, of what Diana was talking about on cesspools. We have a lot of those types of issues in our homesteads. I think for me, I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask, but we have a lot of technologies. So if whatever is being created, if there's, and I don't know, because I'm not, a subject matter expert, but, when these models are created, if it can integrate into things like, I know for us, who's very land-based, ArcGIS, right? Like, if there's overlay or thought behind how we can easily integrate these models into some of the other technologies that we use so that when we are looking and deciding at like where we might be building too close or, existing communities and the impacts on them and how we solve that kind of encroaching sea line levels, in our homesteads on Molokai, Big Island, things, those areas, what are the solutions that we can come up with and how much time do we have, right? Those models would all be very, very important to us from those types of policy standpoints.
Thank you very much. Let's see, Laura Ka'akua, for DOT, do you have any additional, in addition to the highways data that has being proposed to be integrated into this update, are there additional data that you might want to have considered? Leah, is she still on?
I believe so. Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Okay, if you're having difficulty with your audio, feel free to jump in on one of the next 4 questions.
Leah, could you just hit the next, there's a few more data options that have been mentioned. These were some things that could be possible also, and the storm drain backflow, groundwater inundation, potential for compound flooding, if that's something that is, if there's interest in that, and then general vulnerability mapping. And just for the sake of the conversation as well, I have 2 examples of what that storm drain backflow and some of the groundwater inundation could look like, if you just want to look at them real quick, and then we can talk about those.
I still have
items.
a couple follow-up questions too.
Okay.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Go ahead.
That's it, to everything I said. The release of data and how that narrative unfolds is also, I just want to be cautious on it, because, and this might have been totally unfounded, but it was only a few weeks ago, I was made under the impression that there were discussions about releasing the SLREXA at 2025, what it looks like at 2025, and ground truthing it today. And when we heard that, we were like, that could be extremely problematic, because it's a model. So ground truthing it in today's real world would have consequences, particularly those that are critical of it. So I have some concerns about if that's how it's managed. But the question I had for additional data is that the IPCC updated the sea level rise estimates, and this is based off of the SLREXA model is based off of the previous IPCC centering around the 3.2 feet by the end of the century. It's now at 3.9 feet by the end of the century, with an anticipated 3.2 feet before the end of the century. So when the update happens, is it going to be including the IPCC's new numbers?
Maybe I can take that. The intention would be, and this comes from Chip's team, and their modeling approach would be that the components of SLREXA and other models that they're doing they're now looking at those at 1 foot increments. So 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, including 4 foot and beyond. That allows flexibility as those time frames evolve. So, if it was 4 feet at a certain date, now you can, so that's the approach that they're looking at now, and that we would hope to integrate into this update.
Okay, so essentially, in the unfortunate event, but possible and probable event that the IPCC updates those numbers again, and in 2027, we're now looking at 4.5 feet or 5 feet by the end of the century, the modeling will have been done around it, so we'll just shift to the...
Yeah, that's a good way to state it. You just shift the time frame. You don't have to remodel things.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the 2022 report did revise those recommended planning benchmarks upwards to the 4 feet and 6 feet for critical infrastructure, but with the understanding that because our visualization right now is only for the 3.2 foot SLREXA, to stay with that for the regulatory purposes.
Wait, sorry. Can you say that again?
Yeah, in the 2022 update to the 2017 report, the planning benchmarks, the recommended benchmarks were upgraded to the 3.9 or to 4 feet based on the 3.9 and to 6 feet for critical infrastructure.
Right, okay.
But it's difficult to implement that when we don't have the visualization tool on the SLREXA model.
Okay. I had another question about compound flooding, but I can do it later if you guys prefer. Amy?
Whenever, yeah. I just put those up there to spark people's mind, so.
Yes, I mean, when Kauai and even Maui, adopted the SREXA, like a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, I don't mean to downplay SREXA, is absolutely amazing, and using this data within a regulatory framework in the built environment is absolutely necessary. But a lot of people are like, well, that's the main step we got to take, and we're now resilient. And I was like, whoa, like this is sea level rise. Like it is a climate hazard, and it's one we absolutely need to address. But it is, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but it's the slow creep of climate change, right? It's the incremental. It's the incremental impact of a changing climate on our oceans. The fact of the matter is the flooding that we are going to experience and we are experiencing in stormy events and precipitation flooding are really it's happening today, right now. And, it took the planners, I think, some time to get into understanding how modeling works. It took us some time to integrate into our regulations around sea level rise. But when are we going to get the models for precipitation events, for storm events that are happening right now today? And kind of as that conversation unfolded, I joke with Brad often, like, you guys finally convinced us to work with sea level rise modeling, and that's the gateway drug of climate modeling. It's like the marijuana of climate modeling. Like we want the hard stuff, like the heroin of climate modeling. We want.
There's the Civil Beat article.
We want precipitation, hydrologic modeling with compound flooding when it meets the ocean. Like we want that real rich stuff, and that's where our built environments are being threatened today. And the answer I've always gotten is, as much as sea level rise modeling is, and it is, sea level rise modeling is insanely complex. Precipitation modeling, as it's rooted in atmospheric modeling, is exponentially more complex. And so I've kind of been told, the scientific community is not there. You're gonna wait for time. It's coming, but it's not anywhere near that time yet. And so it's kind of like maybe when I'm retiring, this data's gonna come out. And what's happened in the past few hurricane events, the one in Texas and one of the ones on the East Coast, the articles revolving on that started talking about firms that were doing hydrological modeling for these areas and had essentially modeled that these areas that weren't supposed to be impacted by floodwaters, because the FEMA maps say it doesn't flood there, the modeling that these firms are doing right now projected those areas to happen. And so it's like, oh wait, the data's out there. And we're in talks, Kauai's in talks with both of the firms that we're aware of doing. One of them, First Street, are having some concerns about how their modeling is being done because it's kind of in a black box. But there's another firm called Fathom in which their modeling is peer reviewed. But we haven't been able to see the model because we haven't bought it yet. In what way can this report either create its own hydrologic modeling or interface with other entities that are doing that work today? Does that make sense?
It does. Maybe I
Go ahead.
take that one. Just real generally, I think real important point that you reminded us about is that it's important to concentrate on both the chronic impacts, which are kind of those incremental creeps of sea level rise, but also the disaster scenario impacts. So real generally, we need to continue to expand those focus, those two dual foci. This is these bulleted items here, not just kind of like throw it out their wish list. I mean, these are areas of active research, but there is that area of compound flooding is a particularly challenging one. We've had some conversations about this, you and I, and there's some of these organizations, companies that are working on it, and Chip's team, the CRC is working on that aspect. That would be a good question for Chip, not to put on the spot, where his modeling is at in that regard. But we do see an opportunity in general to maybe scale some of these efforts up, depending on funding allocations and things like that. So I think ongoing conversation there. I think they're starting, as I understand it, it's kind of at the conceptual stage at UH so far, and more work to be done to get it to kind of a implementable data source.
Okay.
When it comes to the compound flooding, as I understand, yeah.
Okay. And for those, just the compound flooding, meaning where the
Yeah.
ocean meets the river and the two smash into each other and water heads back. Like, this is what happened in the 2018 floods in Hanalei. Okay.
Which were devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Designee Mills, since we have you for a short time, any comments on what you'd like to see in the update?
I think I've made it very clear to Brad and Amy that I want to see the Big Island and Molokai completed.
Thank you very much. Do you want to go to more questions?
Yes, yeah, I have a few more questions. Although, I mean, we can keep having this rich discussion. And again, this wasn't planned. Leah, if you want to go to the next one, just a quick what it could look like. This is the drainage failure mapped for Kailua that was done at UH. This is Shelley's work here. And then the next one as well is this is the groundwater inundation. And so these are data sets that can be mapped, that can be presented here. This was done under some funded work from DOD that gives us this example that was done only for Kailua here. But this one, it gets a little bit towards, this is the groundwater inundation with the rising water table with saltwater intrusion, and then you add on to that storm drain flow failure due to them being gravity drains. And then the way that this data is presented is for the water table that's both above and below ground and water that could be emergent if you added additional rainfall on top of it. So this is just as an example for anyone who isn't aware of the type of data sets that could be available for viewing as well.
Are there questions for Amy and Brad on that visual map? Because it's
very rich.
It's got a lot of data in it, and it'd be just checking if anybody has a question. You can either just go ahead and speak out, or wave your hand wildly, or whatever you'd like to do. That was a very helpful visualization of what kind of mapping for groundwater and compound flooding is possible.
Thank you.
While people are thinking, was that funding through state DOD from HIEMA for disaster prevention?
No, I think that was, I don't want to say it wrong because it was funding to a research group, but that was through federal DOD working with some climate resilience. And the reason it was in that MOCU is with the Marine Corps base.
Oh, got it. Okay. But of course, HIEMA sometimes does have access to, prevention type of studies that could then inform preparation for disasters.
If I could too, this data is helpful, informative to your previous question, kind in that it shows areas that will have impaired drainage and will be more prone to flooding during a heavy rainfall event too. So might be able to get part way there with some data like this, but maybe all the way there too with some of this other research.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is this a one-off demonstration by federal DOD, or did they do it for other areas that have federal installations throughout the state, to your knowledge?
I believe there's similar data available for Waikiki also. They've tested these models there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Useful. All right. We haven't heard from, let's see, Ray for DAB. Any data that you find might be helpful for farmers and ranchers and biosecurity interests?
Sorry at this time. I'd have to survey and get back to the commission on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But any input that you do get, I would imagine, both biosecurity and your agricultural planning interests might have some requests for data.
I'll definitely get back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, also recognizing that this is a lot of information in a short time, we're going to follow this up with a survey to provide all of the commissioners with the opportunity to do that. Go out to your staffs and identify what kind of data might be useful as we scope what may be possible with the report.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see, we haven't heard from representatives from Senator Gabbard or Representative Lowen on what you think legislators might like to see in this 2027 10-year update.
I don't have anything particularly specific to add. I just think keeping in mind that there is legislation that's been passed, right, relating to the SLREXA, so we want to make sure it's updated to still inform those policies.
Thank you, Representative. Ms. Turner, anything that you think Senator Gabbard might be interested in seeing?
Not at this time, but I can certainly go back and ask him about it.
Thank you. It looks like you'll have an opportunity to provide that input later. Thank you. Let's see. Representative Designee Schaefer, Monique, any thoughts for what the Hawaii State Energy Office might be interested in?
Not really at this time. I think I echo, the ability to overlay any developed models in GIS is always really helpful, particularly if you're identifying any critical infrastructure in the area.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful. Speaking for the statewide GIS program, of course. Go ahead, Brad.
Can I respond to that real quickly?
Yes.
It's come up twice. The current version of the State Sea Level Rise Viewer, all of the layers on there are downloadable as various forms of GIS layers and available on the State GIS Program's website too. So, yeah, great collaboration.
Just continue it because we do
we'd like
use
to
those.
Continue
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that was the point. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is great.
There's also a comment here in the chat about coral reef health into modeling, if that has any components that can be incorporated.
Amy, Brad, any verbal response you want to make to that one?
I've made a note of it.
Okay. So noted, great.
Noted, yes, so noted.
All right.
It would be a little tough though, I imagine. Like, this is.
Right.
I mean, we need to be candid about what the data is and what it isn't, right? This is data on the ocean rising, and not that coral reef is not an important aspect of climate mitigation and dealing with that, but I don't think there'd be a way to incorporate that into this report.
Yeah, I let's take that one back and think about it.
Yeah.
The approach has been to focus on land-based impacts so far, but that's certainly an important piece of the puzzle that would get discussion in the analysis and the report.
And it might get you under the water soon. We'll get that two-dimensional modeling, right?
Field trips.
They call field trips if they're underwater. Just putting it out there. So I don't know if this is appropriate. So I'm just gonna say it because I don't have any filter apparently. But I'm curious, because the question is, what data or information do you need to make informed policy and implementation decisions? And I think we've been talking about modeling, but I also am curious about what solutions are out there that are working to deal with the effects that we're experiencing. So you, of course, understand Kahana and the things that we've been talking about in Kahana and looking at tea grinds and the possibility of saving sand there. Like, if we're looking at the pure essential, essence of this question, part of it is like, what's working elsewhere? So I don't know if you can do anything about that, but I just wanted to say it out loud in case there's of course, we rely on our Sea Grant folks to give us all kinds of ideas, but we need to stay on the cutting edge of that kind of stuff because of where we are and what we're doing. So just putting that out there.
If I can just make a brief statement.
No.
So
Veto.
I think we look at OCCL and like, oh, prohibiting seawalls, we need to do more than that. And sea level rise and shoreline setbacks, we need to do more than that. And we absolutely 100% do need to do more than that. I was with Brad and a bunch of others from UH. We went to the Columbia University seminar and manager retreat. And we're like, oh, let's go find out how the rest of the world is doing it. And every single seminar was on buyouts. Every single seminar was on government buyouts. And then when we spoke, and we were like, we have prohibitions on seawalls and we have shoreline setbacks, like people were walking out of our presentation that I got to ask later on, why did you walk out? Like, is it like, are we doing something wrong? And they're like, you guys are so light years beyond what we can't prohibit seawall. Are you insane? Like, where so many other states are, like, I'm not saying Hawaii is like at the, doing everything it needs to be doing, but we walked away from that like, oh, like, wow, like, and you can't do government buyouts here really. So, I think to the credit of what Sea Grant, OCCL, and others are doing, it might not seem like they're at the forefront, but they kind of are at the forefront.
Yeah. No doubt. And keep being excellent is the comment. But like also too, like if there are like crazy things that like some random island nation is trying, like I would love to know about that. I would love to know if there's a way to construct a reef, a mile out and see positive impacts inshore without like creating habitat and not like screwing things up. Like those are my things.
I think I'm hearing you advocate for making this implementation focused.
Yeah.
And incorporating those kinds of adaptation measures
That's
throughout
great.
and
Yes.
leading with that implementation focus.
Yeah.
I really like that idea. And one thing that would be great, and again, I have no idea on the feasibility of it, but especially if there were places where adaptation activities were working and it could be sort of automatically showing up in the maps with similar conditions. So like if there was a place that was doing something great with a river coming down in a certain shaped bay, and then you could sort of match it to your area, or there was some way to say, in this place, they've used X, Y, and Z to help with this exact similar scenario, that would be really cool.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Like I'm seeing like a Sim City version, right? Like if you do this, this will be the effect. So like you could like almost like a simulator where you could play with the scenarios. It'd be rad.
I think that actually leads really well into the next question, which is about what data delivery method is most useful, or is it viewers with visualization? I can't imagine that anyone's like, no, give me static data tables. But if that's what people say, then PDFs,
sure we can. Please, just only
just
PDFs.
All PDFs of Excel spreadsheets
Yes,
and
please.
PDFs, or even better yet, PDFs of Excel spreadsheets.
Oh my God, my favorite that I can print out.
But just putting this question out there, is it the viewer kind of method that we have used in the past that was developed with the PAC-IUS and the state sea level rise viewer, or is it something that is different or next generation that people can envision of where we go? I did just hear a new next generation kind of, integrating the ability to also view projects and interventions that have been helpful or are working in places into our way of delivering the information.
I have a thing. So I had the pleasure of going to Arizona State University to see their decision theater programming, it's really rad. If you don't have an opportunity, like if you've never seen or heard of it, look up decision theater. It's a room basically where there's touch screens and they're huge. They're all as big as that whiteboard right there, and they've got data on them, and you can change this and it'll change all the other things. And it was just I was nerding out. But in addition to that, we did some stuff with virtual reality. And I'm not saying that this is, I'm saying like 10 years down the road, this could be where we're headed. Because I think when we're talking about showing like the depths, right, that it is hard for people to really understand what that looks and feels like. So to this extent that we can get to the level of people seeing it, not in virtual reality, but on the ground, that would be a rad thing to shoot for in the long term. But as far as like the data that we're getting out of you guys in GIS and in the viewer modes is great. Like I have no complaints about that at all. Like I think that is the way that we've got, and it's fine. But if we're thinking Star Trek, let's like, I think it makes the data more accessible to like average people if they can say like, oh, you mean it'll be up to my neck here? Like they're not gonna see that when it says, oh, 3 feet, it gets red, so that's bad.
Yeah, and just, the system is extremely useful. I mean, it's always that question of how much do you provide? If you provide too much, does it become unyieldy? You know, and Kauai's, in our process of trying to figure out what to do with it and how to incorporate it in the regulatory framework, it took 2 or 3 years. And I know Brad, of course, is familiar with it, but it all came down to a conversation with, I believe it was Chip, might have been with Brad, where we're like, if only you had the depths, we could create a flood regulatory ordinance out of the sea level rise data. If only you had the depths. And there's a Brad or Chip, and we're like, we do have the depths, we just never published them. Like, well, that will get us something. And I think the day we got the depths, I think we drafted the first version of that ordinance in like 4 hours. It was like, but it took us 3 years of discussing and figuring out what is this and how to use it, and to just ask that question with depth. So it's kind of like, I'm not saying provide everything, but it's kind of like, you know, provide as much as you can without it being unwieldy, because the regulatory folks, the built environment folks, eventually they're going to gravitate towards something, and hopefully it's out there for them.
And I think with that is, I don't know, there's probably a better term. We, in sort of our type of data systems, we call it a data dictionary, but like really, really clear explanations of what each data piece is. If it's, you know, a link to the definition, or, you know, especially for people that might be using it that aren't as savvy with this kind of information, but really clear language and explanations of each particular piece, like if there are different layers, what that means. I think that'd be really helpful. It's already pretty good, I'm gonna say. I mean, for someone like me that has no background in this, to be able to use it is saying a lot. So I think it's already pretty good, but just continuing on that in like plain language and really detailed definitions, I think is really helpful.
I like the viewer because it really helps with public education. I can show it to my dad who's 85 and he can understand and use it and use the different scenarios, sea level rise and the timeline for the 3.2 sea level rise versus the 0.5. And also my nephew who's only 8, he understands sea level rise now just by using the viewfinder. So I like it.
And the last question is also, oh, actually, it's the second to last question, is also related, is kind of the same, but for the overall report, right, where the viewer is very good for that interface, but for the overall report in July, we had sort of proposed maybe moving away from the kind of static PDF-based to a more interactive web-based style of report, or some integration of both. And we just wanted to get folks' thoughts on that for the format of the overall report.
Members, dive in. So to speak.
Isn't
No
that
pun
funny? When you're
intended.
talking about water, always the puns come out.
Yep.
I like a living web-based version, because I think the static PDF is just kind of old school, and we've moved beyond that, but that's my personal preference.
I agree. We've had a lot of success with sort of changing to a more dynamic web-based thing that's easily updatable.
Other members' thoughts on that?
I'll second the living web-based, but also if there'd be a way to still make it easy to like refer to specific sections of the report in its web-based form, I think that would be a helpful feature.
There's examples out there that you really liked of other reports. Feel free to share them with us later on.
Yeah, I'd say that the living web base is wonderful. For the regulatory side of this, you know, we had an internal discussion, like, should we just tie the sea level rise ordinance to the map? And once that map is updated, so is now the new lines. And as much as I want to do that, as much as I don't care for transparency and democracy, I was kind of like, we can't do that. We have to allow the legislative branch that process of being able to review the newly updated maps. And so we tied the specific ordinance to the map as it existed in 20, as the report was done in 2018, so that when the update happens, and it would behoove the planning department at the time to go back to our council and say, the map has been updated, we're proposing now to update it, and have those public hearings over that.
Good point. Yeah. And that might also be something that the legislators might want to have that ability to tie updates to the map to state legislation as well, perhaps.
Yeah, that's an important point. I think it'd be good to inventory the legislation that's happened at state and county level around the SLREXA. Some of them might have language like the SLREXA and its successor. It might be okay, and some might need updates. It would be good to know which are which. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we tied the ordinance to the actual web map that we created based off the 2018 report, but we had to send over a PDF of every section of our coastline attached to the draft ordinance. It's like that thick with.
We did something similar for the West Maui Community Plan. We have a policy in there that ties it to the sea level rise, like the state adopted sea level rise exposure area, which is vague and wrong. So we haven't been, it was like we were attempting to do what Kaina is describing with that and say like, we don't want to keep updating the community plan every time you guys change the stuff. So unfortunately, we just did the thing, but it wasn't code, so it's a little different.
Members, Laura Casio for Hawaii County, can you circulate the request for further input on this to the Hawaii County Planning Department so that who has, perhaps the zoning responsibility to make sure we can capture their thoughts on the format of the report that's most useful?
Definitely will do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and now my really last question, and we will be circulating a form. This last one is not necessarily for folks to answer right now. Is just a request for what parts of this report can your agency assist with, recognizing that, for example, Dr. Felton is an expert on human health and impacts of climate change, whereas we are not. And there are human health impacts of sea level rise as well. If there's writing assistance, technical information, existing data sets or databases that could be integrated into the report rather than looking for new data. Also recognizing some of those could be cultural resource mapping that may or may not be publicly accessible, but they could still inform the report, but still not be made publicly accessible. So this is just an open question for any types of assistance that you can provide as this report starts to shape up and in drafting it. Anything to add there, Brad?
Yeah, would welcome it if anybody has anything to say to that right here now, but I think probably expect some follow-up from us on that this fall as we get a more detailed table of contents and an outline here and some specific asks to you and maybe some of your staff to see if you might be willing to contribute technical input and maybe some of the writing on that.
Okay. All right, any further comments from the members of the commission? If not, I'll move to any.
I'm sorry, I know it's kind of expensive, but what's the overall timeline for the update to the report?
The timeline for the legislatively required update is December 2027.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any comments from members of the public? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and thank you, Amy and Brad. Very helpful, great conversation. Appreciate the questions.
Yeah,
especially.
thank you to everyone for your
Feedback,
input.
yeah.
And we look forward to your survey of the commissioners
Yes.
for circulation and input.
And when that does go out, please feel free as well to share that with your staffs and folks who are working with you, who are doing this firsthand work as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, members, we're going to move to, I'm going to ask if we have item 4, which prior was going to be a discussion on climate adaptation, identifying cross-jurisdictional strategies based on an example proposed by the City and County of Honolulu's Office of Climate Change Resilience and Sustainability, or Sustainability and Resilience.
It's really long, the title.
The Resilience Office. However, they're not able to be here today. So members, any thoughts on this particular agenda item? Or
I can say that for Kauai, well, certainly for Kate as well, but for Kauai, we've been eyeballs deep in the weeds with the fire science folks and looking post-line. Certainly for Kauai, we also had a very close call with one of our plantation camps. So we recently adopted a built environment wildfire ordinance. It only applies to our historic plantation camps, but there are clear signs within that there is the potential for larger scale regulatory approaches. So
yeah.
I put that out there. Not prepared to discuss it today, but
yeah, no, something for future discussion. Okay.
And if I can tack on, so we've also contracted with, you're gonna have to help me remember what CPAW stands for. Community Planning
protection against wildfire, I think.
Against wildfire. Yeah, so we just, the County of Maui signed an MOU with that organization, CPAW, to assist us with kind of some cross-departmental coordination on fire planning. Because I think we do spend a lot of time thinking about sea level rise because we're in the ocean and duh. But also, what we saw in Lahaina is part of that, is part of climate change, and we have to be adaptable to that. So one of the things that's going to be happening in our department, in working with the Department of Fire and Safety and also Department of Public Works, it's kind of getting some common terminology around it and talk about how we kind of change our building materials to meet this moment so that we can create herd immunity, if you will, in our built environment, so that a major catastrophic wildfire comes through the community, but we've got enough buildings that are built to withstand that we can survive that, especially with the reconstruction of Lahaina. But then as we go forward and construct new communities, we're looking at that kind of thing across the entire county. So for us, like Kauai, we recognize fire as a pretty significant part of our adaptation going forward. Of course, sea level rise remains a concern, but we're also in the flooding. Flood has just been killing us, especially in South Maui. So.
Yeah, it's a strange concept. I mean, so much of this commission and other work around resiliency has been tailoring the built environment so we can learn to live with water. And it sounds strange, but there is science and there are strategies out there where we can learn to live with fire.
Yeah.
Okay, I got 2. That's great. All right. Members, we can reach out to the State Fire Marshal. There's a new person in that new role. And we can also reach out to HIEMA on that. So we'll see what we can tee up for another next quarterly meeting.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you. Other members, thoughts on adaptation using cross-jurisdictional mechanisms? Kiana, I see you with your camera on. Did you want to make a comment on this?
I think that's just her picture.
Oh, is it? Okay. Seeing none, members of the public, anybody who wants to add a comment to this agenda item? I don't see any hands up. So.
I just have a quick question for you folks. Would it be helpful, for future agendas to create like a permanent interaction group to have these discussions, or to have, this discussions in a larger group, or both?
I'm open to both.
Yeah,
Okay.
either.
Okay.
Sorry, one other thing. If we
go ahead.
on this same subject,
Yeah.
drought. too.
Drought, yes.
So how do we combat that? Because one of the things that we're seeing as a result of climate change is, sure, maybe we're getting more vegetation, but that vegetation is thirsty. Also, we're getting changes to our, I mean, it's been really dry on Maui. We just got rain yesterday, and it was like, everyone's out in the streets dancing. I mean, it was incredible. So drought is the other piece of it.
Yeah,
Thank
thirsty
you.
alien grasses.
Yeah.
And of course, the future of agriculture.
Yeah.
On our state, which is a statewide priority.
Yeah, that connection between water and yeah. Thank you. Sorry for.
Okay, no, excellent. That's great. Okay, anybody online there? You guys are being awfully quiet, so I would love to hear some other thoughts on adaptations you'd like to focus on. Laura, is that you? Did you turn on your audio? No, okay.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, I'm happy to contribute that. Also, I think a big focus would be biosecurity and invasive species as it relates to, being exacerbated by other impacts of climate change. And of course, the impacts on being able to feed ourselves.
Absolutely. As we know, climate change opens the door for species that we haven't had before, that we don't have natural predators for, and therefore we're vulnerable. Thank you very much for that. Okay, any other thoughts? All right. Nancy, are you coming forward to talk?
If you're allowing comments.
Yeah, of
from the
course.
public. For DHHL, we've been reached out to by the Department of Health, and the efforts that the city and county are doing to work on basically designing healthier communities, retrofitting communities to be more walkable. We did a walking tour with some folks that came over from the mainland, and in Kapolei in the middle of the day, and it became very clear very quickly we didn't have enough street trees, that we had way too much pavement. And designing our homesteads, our problem is that we need to try to get as many lots per acre as we possibly can. But if we're creating heat islands, that's not healthy for our beneficiaries. So, the more help we can get from folks like the Department of Health can hook us up. Unfortunately, a lot of the federally funded programs are being cut for this sort of thing. But as a state, I think we're going to have to become very self-sufficient. And so, we really want to work with other agencies and the city and county to find ways to keep our homesteads affordable while not creating, paved, too dense, unhealthy homesteads. So I think that sort of cross-jurisdictional strategy is going to be critical. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, that calls up complete streets, urban forestry, which is definitely a focus of the city and county and DLNR. So and many other programs. So that's a challenging but very important cross-jurisdictional adaptation challenge. Okay. Any other comments on this before we move on to our, I think it's going to be our last item of the day. Okay, let's move on. In the email that you received, we had a draft table of contents for our annual report, which is a legislative requirement that is due 20 days prior to the next regular session of the legislature. That 20 days falls on, I think it's December 31st or January 1st. So I think the administration's backing that up to December 29th, just for convenience sake. But You've seen, I think we've got it up there on the share screen. And here's just some ideas to generate discussion for this. This, of course, will be for the 2026 regular session, so it'll be prior to our submittal of an updated sea level rise report. So as you look down what we've got on there, things that are missing, things that you'd like to see tweaked a bit, things you don't think need to be on there. I'm giving you a couple of seconds to look it over and see what jumps out at you as either an opportunity, missed opportunity, or not necessary.
This is all of it?
Yes, this is
all of
it.
Yeah, this is table of contents.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
And just to add as well that we're also going to be releasing the climate action pathways early December.
Yeah, that's the EPA grant that DLNR is the grantee for and has been working on now for 2 years, Leah? Yeah. So it has quite a lot of progress to report. Okay. Thoughts? Members? No? No?
I have a thing. It's just an idea, and it may not be a good one. I'm curious about, do we want to talk about where we're headed at all in this? I mean, because this is talking about where we were, right?
Mhm.
Is there any appetite for like a paragraph that says we had this conversation about kind of what this, what we're doing and recentering our focus on adaptation might be a useful, just like closing section that says like where we're headed. I don't know if that's a good idea or if it's done, but I just want to throw it out as a possibility. I always like to feel forward momentum.
Right. Good. So noted, and I like that idea too. Okay. So we'll try to get that in. Laura, Dr. Fell, go ahead.
I just think it would be nice to put in the report about the interns and vistas that you have been working with us. I think, the workforce development and the opportunities provided to those different folks. It's been a lot of people now over the years. And I think that's a really cool part of it, is providing the opportunity for work in this space for sort of young climate leaders, if you will. So that would be cool to add in.
Credit for that goes to Leah Laramee, who has honchoed that for 5 years, I think. So thank you for that. That's a good suggestion. Okay. Any other suggestions, members of the public? Suggestions? Okay, this will undoubtedly get some more input, and we will be, let's see, this is October. Our next quarterly meeting will probably be in January, and we sometimes try to coordinate it with the opening of the legislature to make it easier for our neighbor island members to come over and do, 2 furs or 3 furs or whatever. But we will have a date for you shortly, so you can block your calendar and make your plans. Any other thoughts before we adjourn?
The young youth climate leaders just reminded me that we're going to be co-hosting the Youth Future Forum at the legislature November 1st. So if any commissioners would like to participate and join, please reach out to myself or Bill. It's a great collaboration with a lot of the legislators, including Rep. Lowen, who's here, so mahalo, and just a great way to engage with youth across the state.
Thank you, Leah. Any other announcements? You could probably take down the share screen and we can see our members again. Thank you. Members, any other announcements before we adjourn?
I just wanted to amplify that event real quick, the Climate Future Forum and Youth Climate Summit at the state capitol that Leah mentioned. It was a tremendous success last year, and we're really looking forward to another great event. So help get the word out. It's in our newsletter, it's online. People can send me an email. And if you have any groups that want to table at the event in the afternoon, just send me an email. But we really appreciate all the support for this wonderful event and helping our youth to a better future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, hearing no other comments, we are adjourned, and thank you very much all for attending. Appreciate it.